On today's podcast, we sit down with acclaimed music supervisor, Stephen Gizicki, known for his work on iconic projects like La La Land and Bob Dylan's biopic, A Complete Unknown. Stephen opens up about the biggest shifts in music supervision and sync over the past decade, the hidden truths and misconceptions about the music supervisor's role, and what it really takes to break into this competitive field. We also dive into how global streaming is changing the soundtrack of film and TV, the explosion of opportunities for independent artists, and the keys to getting your music placed. If you want rare insights straight from one of the industry's top music supervisors, this episode is a must listen. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we're thrilled to welcome Stephen Gizicki, acclaimed music supervisor behind films like La La Land and the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. In this raw and insightful interview, Stephen pulls back the curtain on the world of music supervision. We dive into the biggest changes in sync and supervision over the last decade, the constantly evolving role of music supervisors, and how budgets, technology, and the sheer amount of content have impacted the job. Stephen shares how he approaches selecting music that stands out, talks about the global nature of the industry as streaming expands audiences, and reveals the importance of networking, resilience, and collaboration in breaking into this competitive field. You'll learn how indie artists can get noticed for placements, why research makes all the difference, and what it takes to keep a musical train running on set. Plus, don't miss Steve's practical advice for aspiring music supervisors, his favorite book recommendations, and the surprising story of how a new generation is discovering Bob Dylan, all thanks to the power of music in film. You don't want to miss this fascinating conversation with one of the top music supervisors in the business. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey, Insiders! Are you an aspiring musician, artist, band, or future music business professional looking to take your career to the next level? Well, look no further. At MUBUTV, we offer personalized career counseling and coaching designed specifically for folks like you.
Imagine having both of us by your side, guiding you through every step of your music journey. Our sessions are tailored to meet your unique needs, focusing on critical aspects of your music career, such as refining your songs, defining your artist story, identifying your target audience, and enhancing your social media presence, just to name a few.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your existing career, we've got you covered. Our comprehensive approach ensures you get insights on everything from live shows to branding and marketing strategies. We understand that every artist is unique. That's why our coaching is personalized just for you.
And here's the best part. We offer flexible coaching packages that fit any budget. Choose from individual sessions ranging from 30 to 90 minutes, or save with our discounted 4-session packages. Experience custom sessions designed to enhance your music career, with opportunities for greater savings when you choose bundled sessions. Investing in your musical journey has never been more accessible.
Imagine the clarity and direction you'll gain after just one session. The feedback on your songs, the strategies to grow your audience, and the confidence to perform live, all tailored just for you.
So why wait? Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Join us for your free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com for a transformative coaching experience that will elevate your music career. That's book.mubutv.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jones, manager of Creative Sync at Extreme Music, and you're listening to the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.
Today's featured guest is music supervisor Stephen Gizicki. This was a very, very interesting conversation, Eric, with someone who, I've had a lot of respect for his work for many, many years. He is truly one of the leading music supervisors in the business. He's a Grammy Award-winning supervisor.
Emmy Award winner.
His work on La La Land, which was, an original musical, one of the very few original musicals to come along in the industry in like 25, 30 years. He spoke about a lot of very interesting things, and one of the things that really stood out to me, and we've discussed this before with other supervisors, is the globalization of music supervision and choices in the world today. And this, insiders, I think, is something that you guys need to really pay attention to. It's the whole aspect that the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's not just about, American TV shows. We're now living in a global village as far as entertainment, as far as, the kinds of things that you're seeing on Netflix, on Hulu, on all of these channels coming from international territories. And the whole globalization's impact, while global streaming hasn't drastically changed the creative choices, it does influence music licensing logistics, especially when you're shooting in different countries. And this, I thought, was a very interesting kind of phenomena in that, we tend to think of music only the music that we know.
Right.
And, and vice versa. I think that for our listeners and our insiders, start thinking in terms of other countries. It's not that the music has to be exclusively in that language. It's not like, in Germany, they only listen to German language songs. That's not true. Or in France. There may be more of that, but there's also opportunities beyond your own borders. And that's the point that I thought was the most interesting.
Yeah, one of the other areas that I thought, and when we're trying to pick out what we're going to speak to you about, we really want to deliver value for you guys. And one of the really great things that I thought that he said was clarity in email pitches. When pitching music, clear and descriptive subject lines, i.e. 1960s folk one-stop, help supervisors quickly identify relevant submissions. Talked about this again ad nauseum throughout the show, but it's important that when you're getting access to any briefs or any inside information in terms of what the music supervisor is looking for, it's really important to think, within my catalog, do I really have something, or am I just going to send them something? Again, this is the whole idea. You have one chance to impress people or, to make an impression. If you're pitching for something and your music is heavy metal and it's for a folk, biopic, you're going to be really shit out of luck. And so the whole idea is to really listen to what the brief is saying and to really deliver on that. Even if it doesn't get picked, it doesn't mean that your music was bad, but at least you were in the wheelhouse, and they're going to take much more respect in somebody that's sending them something that's of value and that really meets close to the criteria than sending something that's completely out of, left field.
Absolutely. And again, this goes back to something we've talked about before. The world of music supervision is not about a supervisor finding 5 minutes to listen to your music to find a place for it in their world. It's for you to serve the needs of that TV show or to contribute something to that movie or whatever. Not just, I do heavy metal here, listen to this, find a place for it. So it's a very apt point you're making.
And with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation from Muse Expo 2025 with Stephen Gizicki.
Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Good to have you. As a leading music supervisor, do you feel that music is being used more today to help tell stories in film and TV than in the past?
I don't know if it's being used more. There's just more stuff, right? There's more, I hate to use the word content, but I'm going to use it. There's more things for our eyeballs to digest, which means that there needs to be things for our ears to digest at the same time. And music plays a pivotal role in what we watch, right? And it helps us tell a story. And frankly, sometimes it's used as a crutch, right? Like if this maybe something isn't working, you can just have a popular song in there and kind of guide something through. But because there's so much out there, everyone wants to stand out. So everyone tries to make their music stand out, and their music different, and their music pop. So maybe that's what you're seeing.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us on the show. I wanted to ask you, what have been the most significant shifts in the world of music supervision and sync over the last 10 years?
Oh boy. In supervision, what's interesting is I'm seeing a lot of music supervision jobs go in-house right now, which is not necessarily, I think, forward momentum, but I'm seeing that happen because we're seeing the industry contract and we're seeing budgets go down. We're seeing music budgets go down as VFX budgets go up. And as cost-cutting measures, I sometimes see supervisors just aren't getting the gigs that we normally would because things are going in-house. Sync, I see prices going up, which is sort of runs counter to what I just said about our budgets going down. So right. I'm finding, like, in the old days, I'd be working on an indie film and I could plead indie poverty, right? And get things for a really good fee, but that doesn't happen so much anymore because people assume, like, if it's a film without distribution, well, it's going to land on a Netflix or an Amazon anyway, so we're not going to treat this as a different price point than we would for a major studio release. So that's sort of an interesting thing that I've encountered over the past few years, is being on these indie films and not paying any prices anymore.
Very interesting. Wow, okay. What are the most common misconceptions about the role of a music supervisor?
I think the most common misconception that I deal with on a day-to-day is that our job is exclusively to pick songs and there you go, right? But really, our job encompasses, we supervise all the music, right? We oversee the composer, we work with music editors. I live half of my life on set, like overseeing actors and musicians and casting musicians and working with actors and getting them into vocal training and finding the right guitar coach for somebody, right? So our job is wider than just picking a song for a placement. I mean, it is a cornerstone of the job, but it really, the job continues to grow to be something larger than that.
Yeah, and some of the projects you've worked on are, had on-set music. I think of the Damien Chazelle and project that you did, which was massive. That was a lot of on-camera stuff right then and there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I somehow found myself in a career where I don't get easy jobs anymore.
Yeah.
Every mountain just gets bigger and bigger year after year. And, but the interesting thing with La La Land is, up until that point, I had never done it on camera.
Okay.
I just got thrown into the deep end
Wow.
because I was in animation and I was working at Lucasfilm for a bit, and I just...
That's a very deep end because it was an original musical.
Yeah,
right.
And I just day one, I thought, oh God, they were going to find out I'm the emperor with no clothes. And, it's like with everything in this world, you just sort of, you dive into the deep end and you figure it out. And honestly, I find those jobs to be so gratifying, just coming off of A Complete Unknown, the Dylan movie, which, we shot music every single day. Most of these music films, we do have a couple days off here and there to recuperate, but on this project, every single day on set. And it was so much work, but really gratifying. I'm just so thrilled with how it turned out, by the way.
And he did a lot of the vocals live, I understand.
Yes.
That was the unusual one.
Yeah.
He recorded it all previously, but they didn't end up using that.
Yeah, that we were in the studio with him and all the actors for a year.
Yeah,
Up until we shot, and then on day one we did the usual thing, which is we start playback, and we're gonna put click in his ear and all the and Timmy's like, yeah, this doesn't really work for me, so let's go live. And that was it. We just never went back. We had a moment of, oh, okay. But what we realized that the year of pre-recording was essentially like a year of rehearsals and boot camp. So he was really prepared by the time we got there.
That's what he has said. He was very, very prepared. It was like 40 songs. That I think was like 30 in the movie or something. But he knew 40.
Yeah, and because he would just sometimes break into another song just to carry on. Like there was a Carnegie Hall sequence where you see he's playing "Hard Rain's Gonna Fall," but we had a full audience there, and he wanted it to feel like more of a show, so he added a few extra songs, and he just kept going. But going back to going live, like what's interesting about it is what I think viewers don't really realize is when you're performing to pre-record, there are technical things that you also have to keep in your mind, right? There's a click that will tell you, oh, here's where the guitar is going to come in, here's where the harmonicas are going to come in, here's where your vocals are going to come in, and you have to be thinking of all these things. It's like choreography, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and that's just a really cerebral, mentally taxing thing for an actor. And he just like, I'm just going to play the song because I know how to play the songs. I know when the harmonica comes in. I know when my guitar comes in. I'm just going to play the thing. And that naturalism is what really sold it, I think.
Yeah. You guys did a great job with it.
Congratulations with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really amazing job.
Very much so.
My job was just to keep the train running. So.
Yeah, and came out beautiful.
Yeah. Steve, when selecting music for a project, beyond the creative needs, are there any other factors that are informing your musical choices for a project?
Yeah, I try to find songs that maybe haven't been in a film, especially recently. Sometimes the most obvious choice is the right choice, but I find something like, oh, let me just dig deeper and see what else there might be. And also, I have a lot of friends in this business that work at labels and publishers and music libraries or whatever, and I want to help friends out. And so I cast a wide net and try to see what all is out there. Because I specialize in musicals and biopics and period stuff, the pool that I dip into is a bit more limiting than most people, right? But I love research. Like when I get one of these gigs, one of my first things to do is just to devour every possible thing. Like I read a bunch of Bob Dylan books and listened to just mountains and mountains of material. And just that research opens up this whole world of things that maybe I didn't know. Like in Bob's book, Chronicles, Bob will say, oh, I'm in my house and I'm listening to this Leadbelly record. I'm like, oh, note. So, the research also kind of I'm like a sponge and it just I just find things everywhere, if that makes sense.
That's amazing.
Steve, has the global nature of film and especially television streaming influenced your work as a music supervisor with regards to your choices of music in terms of catering to a more diverse and wider cultural audiences today?
I think me personally, less so. Like, I think if I was working on a show like Euphoria or something that was really trying to, to sort of trigger something in culture and feel very now, I'd be more influenced by something like that, right? But if I'm making something very specific, like a movie about Bob Dylan or a movie about Leonard Bernstein, right, then it doesn't influence me so much. It does, I think, where I make the film. Like if I'm, like I just shot a film in Canada, so therefore all of my music the licenses needed to originate from Canada, so that's a process thing. But in terms of targeting my music to an audience, like I think I recognize that my little corner of music is not the be-all, end-all of the film. I'm part of the whole. So I sort of figure out what the film itself is targeting, and I kind of align with that. Yeah.
No, I mean, you answered the question in an interesting way, because you talked about like something like Euphoria, where perhaps in another era, they may have had this as far as their parameter, and now, given that their audience is much wider, they may have this as their parameter of what they can put into the film, whereas they wouldn't have made those choices years ago creatively.
Yeah, and I like Jen does a brilliant job on that show, right? And it's very different from what I do. Like I would probably, if I get that job, I'd probably just cry in a corner, like I wouldn't know what to do. But they're like, that's what's so great about this career, is that every job is different, every film is different, every project is different, and everybody has different needs, and we're all friends, and we all collaborate, and we all put our heads together, and I'll be like, oh, Jen, can you help me with this, or how would you do this? And that collaboration is, I think, something that maybe we don't talk about a lot, but we do all network and know each other and reach out for advice and for support.
Hey, Insiders. We hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned, because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Eric, as an artist, what do you find are the most challenging aspects to a music career, especially when you're starting out?
Well, I think one of the first things is just trying to get the direction of who you are as an artist, where you want to go, where you want to be. And, we've talked about it on the show a lot. Who is your target audience? Who you are? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What do you think would resonate with an audience? And so those are some of the things that I would feel being a new artist. Obviously, what I know now is different because I know these things, but for people that are out there like our audience that don't have necessarily any direction to go, would be the first things that I would start off with.
And having the songs that
Absolutely.
Incorporate those elements that you're speaking of into it. That's so important today.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we started MUBUTV and why we started this new consulting service that we're offering to all of our insiders out there, because that is another one of the big things. I mean, that is the big thing, is like having the great songs. That's what it really starts off. Our friend Don Grierson always said, it always starts with a great song. So that's probably, besides putting together what your audience and what your target audience is the single most important thing. Where are your songs at currently today? Are you collaborating with people? Are you trying to go out to networking events where you can connect with other songwriters and stuff like that? So
yeah, and what are your strengths?
Exactly.
Are you a strong lyric writer? Are you a strong melody writer? Are you a strong musician, a player?
Right.
And it's really important to get really strong clarity on those issues before proceeding.
I totally agree, Rich. And, with our consulting services, we offer a myriad of different packages, and we've made it super affordable for everybody. So, if you guys are interested out there in connecting with us on a coaching call, you can visit book.mubutv.com and start off with a free 15-minute discovery call.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We start with an initial 15-minute call where we can get a sense of who you are, what are the issues that you specifically have, right, and want to work on.
Exactly.
And we can go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we tailor everything to your needs. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. We kind of really want to get to know who you are as an artist, where you at today, what's the snapshot of you as an artist today, and then start trying to craft something that's tailor-made for you. So again, if you're interested, visit us at book.mubutv.com for your 15-minute discovery call.
Hi, this is Emma Banks, music agent and co-head of global touring at CAA. Are you an insider? I am. Subscribe now.
I always love this question. Steve, can you think of any examples where a sync placement you made had a significant impact on an artist's career?
Oh, boy. I don't think Bob Dylan needed my help.
Aside from Bob Dylan.
None of those songs were known, you know?
Yeah. Boy, that's hard to say. I mean, again, I don't really function in the breaking bands territory, but I can talk about Bob and Woody Guthrie, for example. I just returned 2 weeks ago from Bob Dylan Center and the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Right, yes.
And when I got the job on the Dylan movie, Timmy actually asked me, like, oh, so what drew you to this movie? And I said, oh, I really want to expose Bob Dylan to a new generation of fans, right? And Timmy said, oh, that's exactly why I'm doing the movie. And so I went to the Bob Dylan Woody Guthrie Center, and they were so appreciative of what we have done because they are now seeing new generations of Bob Dylan fans that are maybe fans of only like 4 months.
Wow.
Flying in from overseas to go to visit these museums and see these artifacts. And just so, I won't say that what I have done has significantly changed their careers, but what it has is it's brought a new audience to Woody Guthrie and to Bob Dylan, which is really exciting and gratifying.
Yeah, because that's like a cultural impact. Yeah. Goes way, way beyond the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought one of my best friends, I brought his daughter to the premiere. She's 14 years old. She's a big Timothée Chalamet fan, which is why I brought her. Had never heard of Bob Dylan before.
Right.
And she left the theater singing Bob Dylan songs, got a guitar for Christmas. The first thing she learned on guitar was Blowin' on the Wind. Has basically listened to nothing but Bob Dylan since she saw the movie in December.
Oh, wonderful.
And I felt, my job is done.
Yeah, that's good. Well, in interviews, Timmy has said he knew very little when he was offered the part. Very little. He knew the name, but that was about it. I mean, he was honest about it. And he spent, several years, like 4 or 5 years, deep diving before he shot the movie.
And we only dealt with a 4-year period, right?
Yeah.
And what people, I think, don't realize... Oh, God, I'm going down a Bob Dylan rabbit hole. Sorry, everybody.
No, okay.
What I think people don't realize about Bob is very similar to, say, the Stones and the Beatles in that every era feels very different.
Very, yes.
And I hope that after watching the movie that people go and discover latter periods of Bob because it's very different and very rewarding, and it almost feels like a new artist kind of turning a page, every time that you go into a new decade. And I hope that people carry on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when the film ends, you if you know Dylan's work, it's like Highway 61 is coming, and these brilliant, masterful, Blonde on Blonde is going to be coming, and double albums that were just masterful, in his, as you say, the next evolution of his artistry, which was a seminal period for him.
Yeah, and I would like to continue making a movie every 10 years, but I don't know that.
Yes, a complete unknown. The sequel will be Getting Better Known, Exactly.
Sort of known.
Exactly.
Well known. Yeah.
I want to ask you, today, are there more opportunities for independent artists to get their music placed into film and television and other visual media in your experience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, we sort of, I cast a wide net. And there are more labels than ever before. There's more publishers than ever before. There are more people out there making music than ever before, which is daunting, but it's really fun to discover something new, someone new. And because there's so much being made, everyone wants something different that wasn't in the show that you saw last night on Hulu, right? So there are now so many more opportunities. And also for new artists, maybe they can pitch their material sort of at a lower price point, and that, if it's budget friendly, that also sometimes can help kind of get in the door and then establish a footing in the sync world too. Also, by the way, I've been doing this a long time, and going down the independent homemade road, the production quality just didn't fit sonically in a project sometimes, right? Because if we're dealing with Atmos and whatever, something needs to sound great. But now, clearly, you can record the most spectacular thing in your bathroom, right?
Right,
And that has just opened up a whole new world for independent artists.
Great.
Sticking with that thread, Steve, what are the best avenues that you recommend for artists and songwriters to place music into film, television, and other visual media?
I mean, every supervisor will have a different answer to that. I don't use TikTok, so I think that's a very key avenue for people. For me, it's to be. I find independent artists, if they're associated with maybe somebody I know, like a pitch person that I happen to be close with or something. Otherwise there's so much noise out there, and I read everything, and I look at all the music websites every morning and read as much as I can, but having a representative pitch is for me anyway, for what I do, really valuable, because it's sort of, I can say, oh, I need this and this and this. This is the sort of the genre that I'm looking for, and that person filters and sends me stuff, which is incredibly helpful. And that's how I find newer artists more often than not. Because if you're going it alone, as an artist, it's sort of to cut through the noise. You sort of need somebody speaking on your behalf. You know, the old adage: if you need somebody talking about you in the room that you're not in, right? So I find a representative, whether it's a label or a publisher or a sync agent, helping is the best possible route.
Steve, throughout your life, are there any books, films, or documentaries that have been particularly inspirational to you that you could recommend?
Boy, I always recommend Passman's Everything You Need to Know About Music But Afraid to Ask. I recommend that to every single person I meet, because that's just the most informative book that I've ever read about the business. I love musician autobiographies. Like for me, like Keith Richards' book just was really brilliant. And there's a Lou Reed book, King of New York, that came out last year that I just absolutely devoured. And I love that I sort of alternate. Like I'll read fiction book and then I'll read a music biography. And I more than a biography, like I love autobiographies. I love reading, say, like Keith Richards' book. He just goes on tangents forever, right? And Bob's Book Chronicles that I mentioned earlier as well, right? So reading an artist's life in their own words and their own idiosyncrasies and their own, like some will say, I don't know if this is true. I barely remember this, but here's the story. Like that to me and that looking inside people's brains to me is always inspiring. Yeah. And those are the books that are piled up next to my bed.
What advice do you have for those who are interested in pursuing a career in music supervision?
That's an interesting question because the business is contracting a bit, as I said earlier. I think it's harder to break into now in a way, maybe, even though there is more stuff being made. As I said, there are fewer jobs and there are more people kind of fighting for the same jobs. But smart, talented people with taste always break through. And I think it's key to just, that's the old adage, you got to network and you got to meet people and be resilient because this business will tear anybody down. And I often joke, like I've been laid off more often than I've ever actually been hired because it's tough. And I think if you're resilient and you just keep picking yourself up every time that you have a setback, like those are the people that make it, and that's how you survive. And you also have to be open to, I think, say yes more than no when it comes to a job, right? Like, oh, can you help with this? Can you help with this? And some people say, that's not really what I do. I'm like, no, I think recognize that we are all in this together, and we all kind of, and we're all building something together, and you have to be flexible. And I think my career is where it is because I was open to traveling to Singapore for Crazy Rich Asians, because Gabe Hilfer couldn't make it, and he was a supervisor on the film, and I got a call like, hey, can you go to Singapore tomorrow? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, that's hard for people to say.
Right,
but being flexible and open and available is key, because, they'll call somebody, they'll call the next person, like, and also, like, have the skills, learn how to clear songs, learn how to work with music producers and composers, and learn how to book studios, and learn how to book musicians. Like, the more knowledge you have as well in your bag of tricks means that there are more doors open to you in terms of what jobs are out there.
What is the best way for people to connect with you? Is it through socials or through an agent or through your website, or do you have one?
I'm building a website.
Oh, okay.
Probably about a decade later than I should have, but I'm finally getting to it. So yeah, that'll be up shortly.
Okay,
but also,
good.
My agent is great.
Okay.
Socials, sometimes, I'm really terrible at reading my LinkedIn messages, I must admit, and really terrible at looking at my Instagram,
I think we all are.
messages.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many things to message on now, right? And I'm like, I can't. Instagram is a great way, and my agent, it's hard too, because people reach out to pitch stuff on a daily basis, some of whom I know, some of whom I don't, and I think on behalf of all music supervisors, I apologize to those that I haven't gotten back to, because there's just so many that I can't always respond. But what I do promise is that everything that comes in, I absorb. Like somebody will say, I'm 1950s surf guitar rock. And I'm like, okay, that person has that. And I just sort of file that away in my brain. And then if I need that sort of stuff, I will find them, right? So by the way, if you're going to email, subject headings are everything.
Interesting.
Because that's just like, boom, okay, I know exactly what
So
this
what
person-
subject headings are you attracted to most?
Free puppies and margaritas.
Free puppies and margaritas, and here's my song.
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah. No, I think it's something very clear. Like, and people are really good about like, like 1960s folk one stop, right? Like that kind of stuff. I mean,
It's very clear.
Rather than saying hi, reaching out, or hi, connecting, is that's. I will
100,000
I will
people a
read that
day do
anyway,
that,
by the way,
yeah.
because I read everything. I promise everybody listening, I read everything. But those sort of like a very clear subject heading pops.
Makes it much clearer. Steve, we want to thank you so
Yes,
much for
thank
taking
you.
the time to do this. We really appreciate it. Really.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. So glad that we had a chance to talk with Steven about this. This was a really interesting conversation on many levels. One of the things, Eric, that he spoke about, which, we haven't really heard a lot about, but I thought was a very, very salient point to our listeners, is he spoke about the world of music supervision contracting and how a lot of that work on a business sense is going in-house.
Right.
So it's creating less and less opportunities for independent music supervisors, and a lot of it going in-house, and finding that, sometimes the networks or the studios are employing more people or doing more of that work themselves when normally they would just
Outsource it.
to a music supervisor,
Right.
so that they wouldn't be the ones having to do it. And how he's seeing from his perspective, and he's at the top of his
At
game,
the top. Yeah.
contract. So that's an interesting observation. My feeling is that you're going to see more and more of that as time progresses, especially over the next year or two. I think we're just beginning that kind of contraction. We've spoken about this on the show before, where I think we're going to see, this enormous volume of production that we've seen over the last 5, 6, 7 years contract as well. I think,
Right.
it's even been announced. Netflix has said, they're not spending $8 billion a year on
Right.
content, maybe 6 or 5,
Right.
which is still a significant
significant
sum,
amount.
but it's not what it was. And I
Right.
think you're seeing a lot of the other networks have the same kind of consciousness. So
Well,
that's going to affect it
Yeah,
too.
and I think you and I have talked about this before, maybe on the show or maybe in private, where I told you I feel like there's a collapse coming with all of these streamers. There is so much content on so many channels coming out that it cannot sustain itself. And I think you're going to start seeing those players, whoever they happen to be, you fill in the blanks, that are going to go by the wayside. And, I watch the stock market quite a bit, and Netflix has just had a renaissance. I mean, their stock is up to like $1,100 because of the moves that they have made and the investments that they have made. And I think I told you this. I think eventually you're going to start seeing these streamers start falling by the wayside. They cannot sustain themselves because they don't have enough subscriber base to continue to support that apparatus. So I think you're going to start seeing those fall by the wayside. And eventually you'll see all of that content coming back into Netflix. And maybe that's why they're anticipating as well, too, cutting back on their original programming a little bit, is because you're going to start seeing that collapse of that whole model.
Absolutely. I think that to address your point specifically, I think we saw the first of its kind of deal where Apple
Right.
made a deal. I for the life of me can't remember who the streaming service was that they made the co-deal with.
Correct.
But did that exact thing. Like when you would get HBO, you would get, the movies from all the studios.
Correct.
Now everybody's in their own isolated chamber, but
Right.
Apple was the first to break that.
And if you notice, Netflix has that. When you go to
Yes.
Netflix now, there's very few the movie companies are still licensing to them, but they're trying to hold on to that because that's all they've got. They're trying to hold on to their library of titles to put in their Paramount Plus. You fill in the blank. There's 50 of those things out there now.
Peacock,
Exactly. But one of the other areas that I thought was really interesting that we spoke about was the opportunities for independent artists in film and television sync. And I quote, absolutely, I cast a wide net, and there are more labels than ever before. There's more publishers than ever before. There's more people out there making music. So it's really fun to discover something new, someone new. So there is now more opportunities than ever. And this is, again, another signal to you guys to have your music, have everything ready to go, get some sync agents to represent your music if you can, and get that stuff cleared and ready, because you never know where this opportunity can come for you.
Absolutely. And, this goes back to a bigger point that we have discussed, which is, this information of what you just said, the widening world of music and the widening world of content. It's out there. Learn what those shows are. Learn what, it's all available. It's
Right.
all, go to IMDb, learn, take the subscription for, what is it, $15 a month or whatever. If sync is really your thing, it will pay off,
Right.
Extensively. But learn what opportunities exist for you as an artist. Remember, if this is your career, you've got to do it. This is what it's all about. Invest in yourself, put your time and energy into that.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.